Hi, I'm Tim and thanks for watching this follow-up video. What we're going to be doing is getting this set up, which is the UGREEN NAS DXP4800 Plus. So what we're going to be doing is putting drives inside. Now the drives I'm using are these Seagate Ironwolf 4TB, and we're going to be using two of these in a RAID format so that it mirrors sets from both drives. And also what we're going to be doing is adding these, which are Lexar NM790 1TB NVMe drives. Now we're going to be using these as caching so that it speeds up read and write access. Now you can of course put one of these in for caching, but if you put one in you only get read cache and not write. So the reason why we're putting two in is so we get read and write caching to both of the spinning hard drives for the Seagate Ironwolf ones. So what we'll do is get the drives put in this NAS and then get this UGREEN DXP4800 Plus NAS set up so that we can gain access. So we'll get right to it now and get started. So here we are with the NAS. We've also got the two supplied heat sinks which go onto the NVMe drives. Now I can describe these as probably if you're here in the UK or anywhere in which country and you know what plasticine is or Play-Doh, then these actually feel like that. They're quite a sort of soft texture to them. They have plastic backing on either side, which you peel off, and this is actually slightly sticky, so it has a slightly tacky feel to the actual underneath, which is covered in plastic. So what we're going to be doing is putting the two NVMe caching drives. So these are NVMe and they are Lexar NM790 and these are 1TB. Now these were quite reasonably priced, so hence why I got the Lexar brand, and I have actually used the Lexar brand before and I've found them quite reliable and good quality. Now they are M.2 slots, so they fit in an M.2 slot which this UGREEN NAS actually has inside. So we'll turn it over, and on the bottom we have a panel with two screws. Now what you do is unscrew these two screws and this will give us access to the panel underneath. Now we're using the supplied screwdriver which they kindly supply with the UGREEN NAS. So with one screw removed, put that to one side, we'll use the other one and get that screw undone as well. And this will give us access to the metal panel. So this is metal underneath, which is good to see as it acts as a heat distribution sink as well. Now inside this you'll see that there's a little spring-loaded mechanism there. Now that's to actually release the cover, which is a good design as well. So that just springs up to help you release the cover easier. Now inside here we have two NVMe slots. These are M.2 NVMe slots, and we also have a spare RAM upgrade. One RAM module in there, and that's 8 GB. So you can actually upgrade it, I believe, to 64 GB of RAM. So there is a spare slot there should you wish to upgrade it. Now you do have to upgrade this in matched pairs, so if you want to use both slots, make sure you get a matched pair for the RAM modules. So what we'll do is just release the two screws for the NVMe drives, and be careful not to drop those inside the actual NAS itself. Put that to one side, and the second one. So what we'll do is put the first one in, slot it into the module. Now it does only go one way. Now the groove on the SSD is actually to the left, so the larger part is actually to the right, and then the smaller part with the groove is to the left. So that goes in there. It's a bit awkward to be doing it while holding it. You need 3 pairs of hands to be honest. And then we just hold that down, put the screw in, loosely tighten it with your thumbs and finger, and then fully tighten it with the screwdriver, as you'll see. Now you don't need to over tighten them, just make sure that they're securely in there without being too tight. And then the second one goes in like so. So it's slotted into the grooves lined up with the screw hole, and then the screw is put in place and then fully tightened up. Now, one thing to remember when you're purchasing these SSDs is to make sure that you haven't got them, or you don't purchase them rather, with the heat sinks already included, because if you purchase them with the heat sinks, they may not fit into the panel and the lid may not close. So I'd recommend purchasing them without the actual built-in heat sinks and just use the heatsink pads that were supplied with the UGREEN NAS. So what we'll do is take the plastic backing off there, one side, stick that to the top side with the label for the NVMe, line it up so that it lines up properly, peel off the other side of the backing there, and then we'll do the same with the second one. So we'll peel off the plastic, line it up with the top of the NVMe, press it down gently, peel off the backing, and there we have the two NVMe drives inserted. Then now what we can do is replace the cover. So there's two grooves there which go hook under the top there, and then press down and hold it down while you're putting the screws back in. There we go, one screw in, and we'll fully tighten them in a moment when we get the two screws partly tightened up. And there we go, with the panel replaced with the NVMe drives in. So now we'll turn it back over onto its proper side, and then with the front we'll now insert the binning hard drives. Now, as I've mentioned, these are Seagate Ironwolf, and these are 4TB ones, so they're red labels on them. Now, if you want to know the model, they are ST4000VN006. So we'll open slot 1, bring out the drive tray, and then at the side here we've got a release button which we'll hold in and then pull the drive bay out, as you'll see. So that just releases the side mechanism there. Then we'll put the drive in with the connector on the drive facing to the back of the drive tray. So with it lined up, and it will line up with the holes at the side of the drive. With those lined up, then you can actually push the connector back to seal the drive in and lock it in place, which it has done. So just make sure that the drives are locked in. And that's the first drive installed into drive bay 1. So we push it right in and it clicks, and then the cover clicks shut. So we'll do that for the second one. So we'll put that into drive slot 2, push it till it clicks, and then shut the cover. And then we have the two drives in. Now, drive bay 3 and 4, I'll be leaving these for the time being, so I'm leaving them blank, and then if I want to upgrade the storage, which I'm thinking of doing later on, and what I'm planning on doing is using drive bay 3 and 4 in a RAID 1 configuration, so it mirrors the data. And just to say that drive bay 1 and 2, these will also be mirrored in a RAID 1 configuration where it will mirror the data onto both drives. But for drive bays 3 and 4, I'm thinking of using that as archive data. So now we've got that ready, we can now connect it up to the power, get it powered up, and then we'll hop onto the computer and get this configured. And here we are at the PC, and we've opened up a web browser page. Now at the top we can do various things. We can either download the UGREEN NAS app, or we can just type in the address bar find.ugnas.com, and it will go ahead and search your network for your UGREEN NAS. As you can see, it's found it and it's given us the IP address. So what you can also do is, now that you've got the IP address, you can actually type that into the address bar at the top as well. So we can type in 192.168.1.244, and you will see that it's now asking us to name your UGREEN NAS. So the device name, you'll see it's got DXP4800 Plus -A44 in the device name. So we'll leave that device name as it is. And what we need to do is tick I have read and accept user agreement. And if you agree to share device data that does not contain any personal information to help improve the UGOS Pro service, you can actually tick that. No, you don't have to. So in this case, we'll just leave it blank and select next. Then what we need to do is set up the administrator account. So we're going to set the admin account name. So in this case, it will be Tim. And in the password, we'll enter a secure password and confirm the password again, and then select next. Now it's asking us to bind the email address. Now you don't have to do this, you can actually skip it. So in this case, I don't want to put my email address in for the time being. So we'll click on skip. And it's saying, do you want to skip? After skipping, you can't access this device remotely through the internet. Now, if you want to access it remotely through the internet, you would need to select cancel and provide your email address and verification code. Now, the verification code will be emailed to you. So once you've typed in your email address, you'll then get the verification code by email, which you'll then need to put in that box and then select next. So in this case, we'll click skip and then click OK. And then it's asking us about the system update method. Now it's saying only important updates to UGOS and apps are automatically installed, which is recommended, or you can automatically install all apps to UGOS and apps, or you can just select notify me when UGOS apps and the operating system updates are available. So we'll select this, as I like to install mine myself manually at various times of the day. So we'll select initialize, and then we'll wait for the device to initialize, and what it will be doing is downloading the UGOS Pro, which you can see it's configuring now, and setting up a local account. So when configuration is complete, the device will reboot. So as you can see, it's loading UGOS Pro system files. Keep your device connected to a power source. Time left is approximately 20 minutes. When installation is complete, the device will restart. So we'll just wait for this to complete, and then I'll come back to the video again shortly when it's rebooted. So you can see that it's now saying the system is rebooting. It might take 3 to 5 minutes. So now, as you can see, the UGREEN NAS has rebooted itself. It's saying, hello, welcome to UGREEN NAS. So in the top right corner, we have system service. Note, important system updates are available. It is recommended to update the latest version to version 1.820.0012. And it's saying go to update with a link. So we'll click this. And then with the hello, welcome to UGREEN NAS, we'll click on start. And here we've got various pop-up windows, which is showing you how to navigate the system. So we'll just go through these, select next, control panel, select next, app center. Of course, you can download apps from their app center, select next. You can set desktop wallpaper here. So that's in the settings at the top right corner, menu icons there. Select next. Great, you have learned main features of UGREEN NAS. Get started with volume creation. So we'll select go, and it's saying welcome to storage. So we'll select next, welcome to storage on part 2. So it's saying create storage pool, create volume, and then done. So we'll click on create. So now we're going to create the storage pool. So this is the storage pool where the data is actually stored. Now, just to make you aware that the UGREEN NAS has a built-in 128GB SSD drive where it stores the UGREEN operating system. Now, this is only for the operating system storage, and that any apps you download and install will be installed on your data hard drives. So these are the drives that we've put in, for example, the Seagate 4TB ones. So they will either be stored there, or if you want to use the NVMe drives as storage and not cache, then you can actually use those drives to install the apps and data onto as well. So what we need to do is select the hard drives. So in this case, we'll select the hard drive 1 and hard drive 2, and then it's asking us to select the RAID type. So with the RAID 1, which is what we're going to set it has data protection. Even if, for example, one hard drive gets damaged, the data on the other hard drive will not be lost. So I always choose RAID 1. Now you can, of course, depending on what your requirements are, you can actually use other RAID, for example RAID 0, or if you have more than 2 drives, then you could actually use, for example, RAID 5, where it will spread the data across all of the drives. So depending on what your requirements are and how much data you have and how many drives you have, then you need to choose the recommended or your choice of RAID configuration. So with RAID 1 selected, we can go to next, and then it's asking us for volume 1. So what it's going to do is create a first volume, so volume 1 on the drives, and this is where the data gets stored. So what it's basically doing is formatting the drives to the recommended file system. So in this case, they're wanting you to choose ext4, which is high performance and stability and is normally used on Linux-based systems. Now, if you want to use BTRF, this supports snapshots, copying, assigning space quotas of shared folders, and advanced data integrity protection. Now, I prefer to use ext4 on all my NASes, for example, QNAP, Synology, and so on. So we'll go with ext4, which is the recommended one and which is already selected. So for the data size, you can actually increase or reduce this to how much data size you want to use for the volume. So we'll go with the maximum, which is 3.7 terabytes, or which equates to 3,710.7 gigabytes. So we'll select next, and then you'll see we've got the preview. So we've got storage pool 1, which is a RAID 1 configuration. The total size will be 3.6 terabytes, and volume 1 allocatable capacity is 3.6 terabytes, and the file system is ext4. So we'll click on create. All data in hard drive 1, hard drive 2 added will be deleted. Do you want to continue? So we'll select format, as these are brand new drives, so there's no data on them, so no worrying of losing data at this stage. So we'll click format, and then we need to enter our admin password for verification, and then select confirm. Now it's starting creating storage pool 1. Now the estimated time remaining is being calculated, so it's just at the moment syncing data, as you'll see here. And for volume 1, it's actually formatting the volume. So we need to wait for this to actually finish formatting before we can actually store data on the drives. Now it's saying creating successful. So it's actually created the volume 1. As you'll see, it's optimizing it now. It just replaced it with normal, and now it's going to optimizing. Now you can actually, while the storage pool is actually syncing, so it's syncing the RAID data between the two drives, although there's no data, it's actually still syncing the drives. You can actually still store apps on it, but it will actually slow your system down while it's syncing. And this could take a good few hours depending on the size of your hard drives. So the bigger the hard drives you're putting in, say for example, if you put 12 terabyte drives in, then it's going to take a lot longer to actually sync the drives together. So it will actually take hours. Now, whilst the volume 1 is optimizing, what we can actually do is go in and create the cache drives using the M.2 NVMe drives that we earlier inserted into the UGREEN NAS. So to do this, we'll click on hard drive, and you'll see we've got the M.2 hard drive 1 and M.2 hard drive 2. So we'll select 1, and then we'll select use, and then create SSD cache. We'll go for storage pool 1, which is the only storage pool we have. Select next, and then we'll go in and select volume 1, and the cache mode we need to select is read and write cache. Select next, and it's saying please select the read write mode carefully. Power failure, device malfunction, improper removal of hard drives, etc. may lead to data loss in the volume. Now basically what this means is if you have, say for example, power cuts, then it could lose data if it's in read and write cache mode. Now what this means is when the data is actually being read or written to the drives, it will go through the caching drives, load the data or write the data quicker using the M.2 NVMe drives. Now of course if there's a power cut while that's happening, then you could actually risk losing the data. So I would recommend getting a UPS for your NAS so that the uninterruptible power supply will actually cut in and stop the NAS losing power, which could help so that you don't lose data. So in this case, we'll click on confirm, select the RAID card type, which is RAID 1, and select the SSDs. So we need to select both of these. So as I've said, you need to have 2 of these installed to enable read and write caching. If you have one, then all you'll get is the option to have read caching and not write and read caching. So we'll select next and then allocate capacity. So at the moment it's 938.6 gigabytes. As you'll see here is the allocatable capacity. So we'll keep that as the maximum. Select next and then select apply. And it's saying format hard disk. Now the spelling there is incorrect. That's slightly an oversight in the operating system. Hopefully UGREEN will correct that. So it should be format hard disk, not DSIK. All data in M.2 hard drive 1 and M.2 hard drive 2 will be deleted. Do you want to continue? So we'll select format and then we'll enter our admin password and select confirm and wait for it to enable that. And it's saying successful with that pop-up message. Hopefully you just noticed that there. So now if we go back to storage, you'll see that we've got volume 1, which is optimizing at 20%, and also the remaining storage. So that's the RAID 1 syncing has a remaining time of 13 hours. So what you need to do is just let that run overnight, and by the next day it should actually be all synced properly. But of course you can actually still use your NAS for the time being, but it may degrade performance and you may notice that the system is a bit slower than normal while it's actually syncing. Now at the moment, if we go back to the control panel window, which you'll see behind, if you noticed earlier, it said we had system updates. So it's saying that the new version has been detected. So what we can do is select update now. And during system update, all apps, services and running tasks will stop. After completion, the device will reboot automatically. So what we can do is select update, wait for it to update and then reboot the system. And then the RAID syncing will actually continue once it's rebooted. So I'll just wait for this to reboot and then I'll be back to the video again shortly. Now that we're back up the actual storage pool screen, you'll see that the volume 1 is now showing the status as normal. Now the RAID is still syncing, as you'll see, and the estimated time remaining is 4 hours and 51. Now, as I've said, you can actually still use the NAS while the RAID is syncing. So what we need to do now that we've created the volumes, so we've created storage pool 1, is we go in the left hand side and we'll create our shared folders. So we'll click on files and you'll see we've got the welcome box. So what we need to do is create shared folders, personal folders or user folders. Personal folders are for exclusive space for different users, such as personal photos, music can be saved here as it's showing you. And then for shared folders, these are configured for device member permissions for fast file sharing and collaboration. So these are for shared folders between multiple users. So we also have user folders. So these are admin only. It is a collection of personal folders named after usernames on the same device. So what we'll do is click on start and you'll see we've got the option to create different types of folders here on demand. So we can create new shared folders or connect to network folder. So we'll click on next, just go through the options here, next and enable. So with enable, and you'll see we've got you can enable personal folders for users on this device. Just enable. However, I don't need to use personal folders, but if you want to, then you can go ahead and create those. So we'll just click on cancel and it's saying changed items have not been saved, save and exit. So we'll just click cancel. And then what we'll do is click on shared folders and we'll create a new shared folder. So this folder name, we'll call it, for example, data. So within this shared folder, what we can do is create subfolders in there and then allocate them to different users or restrict them to different users if we want to. However, there's only one user, which is myself. So we're creating a shared folder under data, and then in that we'll create all the subfolders where we can access them via the network. So we've got the storage location, which is saying volume 1. So if you have more than one volume, you'll be able to select the volume where you want to save this new shared folder to. So you can also set a volume usage limit. So if you want to restrict the storage limit for that folder, you can, or you can actually hide it in network. Now, hide it in network means that, for example, in Windows, you can actually browse the network for shared devices. So if you want to hide it, you can actually hide it there by selecting that option. However, we don't want to hide it. We'll leave it available. And we can also enable recycle bin. So if you want to enable the recycle bin so that when you delete files or folders on this UGREEN NAS, what it will actually do is put them into the recycle bin. Now, I tend not to use recycle bin options on network attached storage devices. So we'll disable this so that once the file has been deleted, it's actually gone. So then what we do is click on create, and then it will ask you for the shared folder permissions. So you can see we've only got one user. And at the moment, by default for administrators, so the administrator group of users, which is myself, Tim, you'll see that we've got slightly grayed out here, read and write access. So what it will do is grant read and write access to this folder. Now there's also an option here for hide subfolders and files from users who do not have permission. Where you're not listed in this user list here, it will hide the folders and subfolders. So we'll click OK, and there we've got the data folder created. And then we'll close the files window here. So now that we've created the volumes, we've set up a shared folder, we'll end this video here, and then in the next video we'll go more in depth, and then also in another video we'll also be installing apps such as, for example, Home Assistant and so on. So keep a lookout for those videos. Thanks for watching and take care, and hope you like this video, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.